what we're going to be doing here is building a Scandinavian trapper's cabin, log cabin from basically from point A to point Z. We're here in the woods. What we have here is an overgrown white pine nursery. The pines here were planted to be harvested and transported at one point, and these are probably 15 to 17-year-old trees. They've approached a point where they're too large to be harvested, so we're going to the perfect size for our small cabin we're going to build. Now these are white pines, and they're very easy to bark. They do have limbs, whorls of limbs going all the way down to the base. So that's kind of a little bit of a hassle, but if we had some nice lodgepole pine like they do in the western states, we have a clear trunk all the way up. But it's just a little obstacle we can overcome. Now as you can see here, what we're doing is thinning these trees. They were planted probably an average of about, I would say, a couple feet apart, a couple 3 feet apart. And now what we're doing by thinning them is allowing the sun to penetrate the canopy and provides health and vigor to the trees adjacent to the ones we're taking down. So we're helping this environment here, and we're also going to build a little log cabin. So one of the first steps here is to spot some nice straight trees. Diameter is somewhat important. I'm trying to stick around 8 inches in diameter at the base. As the tree gets taller, naturally it tapers, but we're going to stagger them as we build our pen on our cabin, and to allow for nice square pen. We're going to go through terminology all the way through the video, and hopefully we'll all learn something and have a lot of fun. As you can see here behind me, I don't know if you can tell how close these trunks are together, but we're going to start here, and let's see, the date is August 2nd, 1997, and my goal here is to get this cabin completed, ready for the christening by Christmas time. So why don't we fire up the saw and get started, and we'll come back to you when we're at the next step here, and we'll take it all the way to the end. Alright, now we've cut our tree. Our tree has been felled, and we're simply going to chain it up to the back of a pickup truck and haul it out to an open area where we can limb the tree and cut it up into the appropriate sizes for our next step here. Okay, we've drug all of our trees to the field here where it's easier to work on them, and what we're doing here is limbing the logs and then cutting them into 13-foot length so we can haul the poles back to the yard for the next step. So we're doing pretty good here. We got 5 8-inch diameter by 13-foot logs to add to our pile of logs for the pen, which is basically the 4 walls. We call that the pen. And I've also cut 3 purlins, which are about 5 inches in diameter by 13 feet. And we'll explain what a purlin and gable and all that stuff is later. But I just got a few more limbs to remove, and then we can haul them up and get back with you another time. We have quite a bit of wood cut today. From the time I first spoke to you till now, it was approximately 3 hours, 2.5 hours. But the great thing about this cabin is that it's a leisure time activity. You can take it at your own pace. I might not get out here for another week. I might get out here tomorrow. That's the great thing about it, but I think we got enough wood cut for one day. We still got to go take it back to the yard, drop it off, and then we'll go get some dinner. Until next time. Well, here we are again. Yeah, we're into October now, and we have about 50 logs, 50 pieces, hauled back to the yard, and I'm going to show you a little bit about how we bark a log and some of the tool required to do it. There's a lot of sap that sprays from the bark when you remove it, so we're going to put an apron on. Which prevents the sap from getting all over your clothes. It's a lot of sap. You'd be amazed by how much sap comes out of these logs when you take the bark off. I have with me here a draw knife, which is, I can't think of a better tool to do this. Draw knife right here. Basically all it is a hardened steel blade that you pull towards you. And I'll show you here. It comes off pretty easy with this method. You set your log up on some horses. You want to get good height on it so you're not leaning over too much, because you can imagine each log is going to require that you take the bark off. For a couple of reasons. One of the main reasons is so the log will dry out. When it dries out, it becomes a lot stronger and a lot lighter. Another reason you want to take the bark off is due to insect and fungus which penetrate. You want to make sure all of the bark is off, like I just mentioned, because the fungus and the insects will definitely get in there, and you'll cause all your bark to eventually slough off, and the interior of your cabin, it will rain down sawdust and flakes of bark in the years to come. So it's always wise to take off your bark. Now, but this log is a lot heavier than some of the first ones I've taken the bark off of. And as it dries now, as it sets and dries on the pile, it will, like I mentioned, get a lot stronger and a lot lighter. We simply take our log, let it fall off the horses. Now you can see here the difference in color. This is one of the first logs I peeled, and this log I just peeled here. So eventually these two logs will be the same color, and once we start building our pen, we're going to take a bleach solution, 1 part bleach, 3 parts water. We're going to spray the whole entire cabin down, and it'll bring out that real rich, warm pine color that we want. And then we'll put some sort of treatment on to hold that color. So I'm going to come back to the camera now, and we'll pan around the yard here, and I'll show you a little bit of our 3 separate piles of wood here. The main pile, as you can see right here, is for our pen. And you can see some of the logs. There's a couple telephone poles in there. which I'm going to use for my first 2 logs because they have been treated and are entirely rot resistant. Over there is all of my tops and oddball pieces that I'm going to use for all sorts of furniture for the interior of the cabin. Railings, ladders. I'm going to put a 4-poster bed inside. And over here is our 5 to 6 inch diameter by 13 foot purlins for our roof. I did start to harvest a little bit of red pine, which is a little bit more difficult to take the bark off of, but it works out just as fine. It's just as straight a tree, strong tree. It's a little bit more aromatic, I noticed, which is kind of nice. So what we'll do, I'll get back with you a little later, and I'll brief you on a little bit about site preparation, and we'll go from there. Okay, we're at our site. We're now into November. It's quite a bit colder out, but it's still warm enough to work the ground, fortunately. Behind me here is going to be our site. Nice flat area I found. Once I located a nice flat area, I took a weed trimmer and I basically took all of the grass and thatch off. And I took a steel rake and raked it real even. And our next step is going to be to take a tamper, which I'll show you here, and we're going to run a tamper, basically a pavement compactor, over the soil and get it real nice and compact before we start our construction. In the 4 corners, I'm going to take a fence post digger and put down 4 piers for footing on the corners down below frost line, about 4 feet. We're just going to fill those up with some cement and lay our first timbers over the top of the piers to keep the cabin from shifting during the freezing and thawing of the seasons. So I'm going to fire up the tamper and show you a little bit about how to tamp it, and then we'll be back with you at a different time. Back at the site here, and what we've done is we've taken a string and marked off our 4 corners, and this string represents the interior of the cabin, 11-foot square. So it gives us a rough idea how to lay down the initial 2 logs, actually the initial 4 logs, but the first 2 are important. I'm going to explain that in a minute. But best way to find out if you have a square, of course all your sides are going to be the same, and your 2 diagonals. If your 2 diagonals are the same, and all your sides are the same, you got a perfect square. Now, you can have all your sides the same, and have your diagonals off a little bit. In that case, get what I believe is a parallelogram, but we're looking for a square here. So our next step here is at each of the corners, we're going to take our post hole digger and dig down about 2 feet just to give us an idea where we're going to put our piers. And then I've started digging a trench here, which is where the first log is going to go. It's going to have an identical trench on the opposite side where the second log is going to go. Now those logs are going to be sunk below the ground. And the reason they're sunk is because we're going to sink them low, and the next logs going perpendicular to the first two are also going to be recessed, but not nearly as much. We just want to make sure there's a decent amount of ground covering up the bottom part of our first 4 logs so that the weather can't come in. And I'm going to continue on with this, and then I'm going to come back with you. I'm ready to pour the concrete down the holes, because our first 2 logs are going to set on all 4 piers. See, on each end of the log, they're going to be setting on a pier, which we described earlier. It's going to be below frost line to prevent our cabin from fluctuating on us. So we're going to get started, do some more with that. Once again, we're going to dig down below grade. Oh, I'd say maybe 3/4 of the diameter of the first 2 logs. And then when we notch the second 2 over the top of the first 2, we're going to have those logs setting maybe 1/3 to 1/4 of the diameter of those 2 logs. The second 2 is going to be below grade. So we'll continue digging here, and we'll be back with you in a half hour or so. Okay, we're working a little bit late tonight. It's kind of funny because I get off work at 3:30 and the sun sets at about 4:20. So in the evenings this time of year, I don't get much time of daylight to come out and work on my cabin. But anyway, I got my truck's headlights on me now, so I had to get this done tonight because we're getting a big snowstorm coming in tomorrow. And I wanted to get these piers poured and get these first 2 logs. These are probably the most more important of the logs to go in. So I wanted to get it done today. And I don't know if you can hear it in the background, but there was a hoot owl, 2 hoot owls behind me, territorializing there for us. But okay, what I've done now is I've drilled my post holes on all 4 corners. And we're going to finish filling up this hole with concrete, then we're going to roll our first log in. So why don't we do that now? Okay, that looks pretty good. What I've done was I filled the post hole up, the pier up with concrete, and I left a little dome on the top of it, so when the log is rolled into the trench, it's going to become secure with that pier. So why don't we roll this log in right now? Alright, that looks real good. It's about 3/4 of the way up the diameter of the log. And we'll put our other one in, and then hopefully soon we'll get back out here. Won't be any snow on the ground, or if there is, at least now we got these first 2 logs in, so we're looking pretty good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to the other side. I'm going to let the camera roll, and hopefully we'll get a chance to hear these hoot owls. And I'll be back with you another day. Okay, we're back out burning daylight again. It's, let's see, I think it's December 9th, 1997. And we've had a little snow to deal with, but we swept off our area and we can work out here a little bit. So I'm going to describe for you how you put the notches in. We're putting in logs 3 and 4 tonight. And what I have here is a scribe. It's basically just a divider. And what it does is it marks your notch. It marks exactly where your notch is going to go. And basically what you do is you get your depth. The 3rd and 4th logs are going to be, like I said earlier, are going to be sunk into the earth, approximately 1/3 of the log. So I got the space, average, my space of about 1/3 of my log. And all you do is you take your divider, you keep it vertical, okay? You simply run it, you run the bottom part of the scribe, the divider, on the lower log. You just run it on the lower log as you keep it vertical, okay? Vertical. And you simply press onto the upper log over and over again on both sides of the log. I'll do both sides, this side over here, this side over here. What you get is a described line, which is exactly the contour of your lower log. So now, what I'm going to do is, after I scribe my line on both sides, I'm going to take the log. Now I've already done the other side of this log. So what I'm going to do now, got all my lines scribed, I'm going to simply take the log, flip it over. Okay. Now as I flip it over, I can see exactly where to cut. Okay. Now you can either do this with an axe or you can do it with a chainsaw. What I do is I usually do the sides. I do the notches with a chainsaw or an axe. It's both about the same speed. But you take, you cut down on either side of the scribed notch, and then you plunge cut through the middle. Or you can take an axe and take your time and just chip little by little. And we're going to fire up the saw now. We're going to put our notch in, and we're going to be back with you in a little bit, and I'll show you how the log just drops right into place. And I'll tell you what, I'll do that now, and then we'll describe a little bit about what we're going to do the next time we visit. Okay, now you can see our notch is the same, basically the same contour as our lower log. So we cut out our notch. Next step, simply to roll log into place. Beautiful fit there. Okay, now what we're going to do next time we visit, we're going to have a lot of this assembly out of the way, because the next probably, let's see, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, probably next 40 logs are going to be handled exactly the same way. So next time we visit, our pen will be pretty much finished. We'll have all 4 walls, and we might start on the roof. Maybe we'll put in a door or a window, but we'll be back with you. Who knows when, whenever I get back out here. Probably on the weekend where I have some more daylight. And until then, I bid you adieu. Right, we're doing real good. As you've seen in the last little bit of footage, you've seen the erection of the pen. About 3/4 of the way there, and it's time to put in the mantle. Basically, the mantle is done by taking logs, short logs, and cutting a double notch, double saddle in them. And then, as you can see, simply slide them into place here. We've already notched them real good. Made sure they fit real good. And you slide your top log into place now. So now you can see these are perpendicular to the, or rather parallel to the ground here. And now what we can do is make little minor adjustments here and there. But what we can do is we can put a little saddle notch in here, cut a log lengthwise, however long we want our mantle to be, and it'll be a nice rustic mantelpiece with the same construction as our cabin has been. So, we're going to keep going. We're going to show you each step as we get closer and closer to putting in the door and windows. So, we're losing light. My battery operated light on my camera only lasts a few minutes. So, until next time, this is Ranger Tod. Farewell. Merry Christmas to you guys. This is the end of part 1 of a video of the cabin making. We're gonna stop here, and I wish you good holidays and stuff. I sound like Chris Farley. I was doing a Chris Farley, but that's not. God bless Chris Farley. Farewell and adieu. Till next time, part 2. I'm a poet, and I don't know. Well, we haven't been out here for a while. Holidays came and holidays went. We're now into January of 1998. My original goal was to have this done by Christmas time, but I didn't make it. Oh well. So, we're at a really interesting point right now though. We got the pen completed. As you can see, on the sides, the tallest logs there are going to give me my 6'2" clearance in the interior. Now the next 4 logs are 2 foot longer. They're 15 feet, and they're going to extend a foot on either side farther than the rest of the pen logs. And this will make sense. We're going to get those up next, and at that point we can put in our door so we can actually enter the inside of the cabin and work from the inside. So this is a good stage to be at right now. We've had a lot of logs, a lot of labor at this point. Now it becomes fun because, well, it's all been fun. But it's a little bit less labor now, although I am higher up in the air, which can pose a few problems. But right now, our Lincoln log style is pretty much finished. The only logs that are going to look similar to the ones on the ends are the gable logs, which get consecutively smaller by about a foot until you reach about a 2-foot log at the top. And our ridge pole is going to go across, but we'll get there when we get there. So I'll be back to you in a little bit, and we should have our 4 rafters up, and tomorrow we're going to put in our door. So we'll see you then. We're going to take just a moment to discuss some ways of handling logs to get them up in the air. We got to discuss the fulcrums, very primitive ways of moving heavy objects. Now, to this point, my 13-foot logs, as I mentioned earlier in the video, are lengths that one man or woman can handle, of average to better fitness. Now, these next 4 logs I'm putting on my rafters, I've added a foot, and they're also a little bigger diameter. So we've added a lot of weight at this point. Not only do we have longer and heavier logs, we have to lift them higher. So to this point, my log in front of me is one of my 15-foot rafters, and I dragged it to this point with my pickup truck. But now, there's no more mechanical machinery involved. It's all up to here and here. So I positioned my barking sawhorses in a position where, as the log is pulled to this position with the truck, I can lift one end at a time a little bit higher as I go. So I'm going to lift this up. This is a very heavy log. It's probably, I want to say, a third to a half, again as heavy as my 13-footers that we've been working with to this point. So you'll see that the effort it takes to lift this log here. And I'm going to show you how to lift the log just up on the sawhorses, and then the technical stuff comes into play. After I take the bark off, I'll get right back to you in about 10 minutes. Snow and ice doesn't help much either, but that's the fact of nature. Of course, you always use your legs, not your back. Now this is the heavy end. Step 1. Alright, we'll be back with you in a minute after we get the bark off of this log. I'll take you through steps 2 and 3. Okay. First step was to lift it off. Lift it off the one end, up onto the top course of logs. Now this is the heavy end and this is the toughest end. So I got about a 4.5-foot step ladder here. I'm going to get under it and use my legs and my shoulder, lift up the heavy end and get it up and set it on the step ladder. At that point, I'll be up to about this point, and I can use a little bit of my upper body to get it the rest of the way. I'll show you. Not bad. When you take into account, you're taking it graduated steps. A little bit at a time, and you'll get her. I got 2 more 15-footers to put on, so I'll have a rafter at both ends and 2 in the middle. And then tomorrow, we get to put in a doorway. So we'll see you tomorrow. Hello again. All right, it's exciting today because we get to put in the doorway. And as you can see here, I have my 2x4s, 2x4 battens that I've screwed once. Just takes one screw to hold this log once you start cutting, hopefully. Each log is screwed in on either side, and then I've taken a plumb bob chalk line, and I've made a vertical line about 33 inches apart, which is going to be a little narrower. My doorway is about 35 inches, 34 and a half. And what I'm going to do is I want to make sure I have plenty of door, and I can take my saw, my band saw in the shop there, and cut it exactly. You know, I don't want the doorway to be too wider than the door, a little bit narrower, so I can trim off the door to make it fit. So I also have a chalk line that I have leveled showing the top and bottom of the doorway. So we're going to go ahead and get the chainsaw started and start cutting these sections out, which I will use either at the very least for firewood, and I might be able to use them for some of the furniture and miscellaneous interior work. So let's see if these battens will hold these logs as I cut through the door, and then we can enter the inside of the cabin. Which will make it a little bit easier to move some of the roofing materials. I just remembered is to cut almost all the way through the first cut, and then goes all the way through on the second cut, and then come back and finish up the first cut. You can see that this log slumped a little bit and then rose back up with the force of the screw and the notching on the ends here. We'll see if that works. Okay, we're going to finish doing this and get our doorway opened up, and we'll be back with you to show you how to frame in the door frame, which we will secure to the end grain of the post with lag bolts, and at that point we can take off our battens, and we probably won't put in the actual door until much later, but now we can access the interior of the cabin. Well, now we got our doorway framed up, you can see behind me, and now we've got both the windows done too. I wanted to show you the last little bit of framing the window. What we have is some real thick stock. We got fortunate enough to find some real thick old barn wood that really keeps right in line with our rustic feel of the cabin. We could have used, 2x regular pine from the lumberyard, which we could have stained, a nice tone pine color, maybe even an aged driftwood color. So that would work too. But we got lucky enough to find this old barnwood. I got the sill and the rest of the the two sides already lag bolted into the end grain of our logs. And the procedure for cutting out these windows was the same we showed you with the doorway. And what we have is just a matter of setting it in place here. Now we got different widths on our wood, but everything is plenty wide enough, so it's a little bit hodgepodge as far as you know. We're basically trying to be as cheap as we can, as resourceful as we can. So if it works and it doesn't look too bad, we're going to stick with it. So what I'm doing with these different widths is I'm bringing the outside flush, so it has a nice look from the outside. And then basically we have our, it's a little under 3 inches in thickness. Smack her into place. Pretty close to the size of our window, but it's not exact. So we're going to have to do some trimming of the windows to make them fit real nice, which is no big deal. But I was searching for some nice black square-headed bolts, but I'm just going to use standard hex bolts. But I've recessed the pilot holes a little bit. We might come back later and either fill it in with some wood putty or maybe even some of the chinking. That's probably what I'll end up doing, just dabbing a little chinking in the holes. Just get your bolt started. I got an electric impact wrench here, and you can use a hand ratchet, but this works pretty good. And I'll get one more in here, and then we'll do a walk around. I'll show you the feel of the windows and the doorway. It goes right into the end grain of the log. So why don't we, I'll come back to camera and we'll take a walk around here. Okay. I'll back up a little bit. So as you can see, the windows are going to be real nice and big. Here's a shot from the through both the windows. Okay, I got two the same size windows on either side. And there's our doorway. All put in the same way, lag bolts. And then right there, I just cut the log lengthwise, so it's nice and real even with the ground, so no one trips as they enter the cabin. I was going to put a
a 2x down there, but I would have lost a lot of my stock of that log there. Remember that one we put in? It's about this second and actually third and fourth log we put in. Sunk down in the ground about a third of the way up the log. And that works out real nice. So we'll pan back here. And we'll finish the walk around. Now, next step, we've been talking about putting that roof in, you know, and we're about there. One of the concerns I have is that our rafters there give us about a 6-foot clearance inside, and I'm 6'2", so what I'm going to have to do is get in there and rip down lengthwise the length of those rafters, just the 2 center ones, and see, it's about 6 foot, and I want to be able to walk in the interior without bumping my head. So we're going to take the rafters, cut lengthwise down to give me a nice 6'2", 6'3" clearance inside. So we got a lot done with the windows and door. The little cabin's really taking shape now, and when we have the next stage, which we'll be starting to figure out the plan for the roof. So, until then, until next time, Ranger Tod. See you later. It's really starting to look like a cabin now. The roof is starting to go up. I have here, we left off last time, I think I had the 15-foot rafters in place. Now this morning, I put in a 13-footer and an 11-footer. Down on the ground here, I have a 9, a 7, a 5, and a 3. And I have 2 sets for each of the gable ends. Like my purlins, which we talked about many times, I have 2 of those in place. 11 of them are total going in. So I'm going to come back and grab the camera, and I'll show you a little bit about the purlins. I'll just do kind of a walk around here. Okay. Now, adjust my camera a little bit. There we go. Now, as you can see here on one of these purlins, it's double saddle notched. And this is for the reason we can take a small sledgehammer and pound these, adjust these once the whole roof system is in place. We can adjust these. And I'll explain that too when we start putting the plywood onto the roof. These can be adjusted back and forth so you get the most surface area touching your plywood. We might have to put some shims in to get it nice and true and straight. But let me show you how you muscle one of these up. We really are finished with all the heavy logs that we've been working with up to date here. Because we're starting to reduce our ends to get our pitch, right? So we have our 15, 13, 11. Now we're going to put up this purlin, and I'll throw up a 9, and then we'll probably come back to you when everything's in place and ready for adjustments and ready for plywood after that. You can see the 13 and the 11. Okay. Let me get up there a little bit. Just about to the point where I'm going to have to start using ladders. But we'll see if I can muscle this 9 up there. Right in place. Yeah, I think ladders are our next tool we're going to be using. Well, we're at a very interesting stage right now. It's a milestone, one of the few milestones in the log cabin building. We're ready for the ridge pole. Very top pole that I've kept aside through all my taking the bark off and all that. I've taken one pole that I found is the straightest, truest, fewest knots, the clearest wood. And I saved that for my ridge pole, and now it's time to put that up. So I got my notches cut in it. All these purlins have been double notched with 2 saddle notches opposite each other. This last ridge pole is just going to have a saddle notch on each end. So I'm going to connect the camera, zero in on the top of the roof, and we'll put in the ridge pole. Ready for plywood now, and some shingles. Once we get the roof on, we'll keep the rain off our head. We can start the chinking process. See you in a little bit. Around.
Got an interior shot. Ridge pole. Now out through that window, I'm starting to clean up out there. You can see my fire. I'm burning all that brush. And I'm going to clear all that area out so I get a nice view of the creek down there. So all this will be opened up. I'm going to run my mower down in there if it's dry enough. Keep it nice and pretty. Alright, back with you in a little bit.
Purlins aren't real true pieces of wood like a 2x4. They have the knots and small dips in them. What we're going to have to do, and what we've done already, is we've taken our top ridge pole and our bottom purlin, and we've run a 2x4 or a flat edge across those two, and then taken a 4-pound hammer and pounded the interior purlins or the center purlins back to that line. So when we put our plywood on, it's going to find the top and the bottom as being as level as can be, and then we're going to take some shims and fill in the dips of the purlins in the middle and the imperfections in that way. So the step I'm doing now is I'm cutting the ends off on a diagonal so that I can put my plywood against that. So I'm going to show you now cutting the last 3, and that's the way it's done on all 4 corners, and then we'll start putting the plywood up and I'll come back to you then. Doing the roofing, you're going to have to use a lot of levers and such, ways to think. It's a one-man cabin. You're not going to have your buddy helping you down there. So I just use my trusty ladder there to brace the board, and luckily if the wind doesn't kick up, it's going to be a mess. So I'm using my plywood. What I did was I painted the interior side already, then I dusted it with sawdust, and I took my blower after it's dried and blowed off the remaining sawdust, which gives it a little texture, sort of hides the fact that it's plywood. See that we've been working with all these natural materials we found in the woods. Bit about the interior now as we're setting up the plywood for the roof. What I'm doing is I'll come back to the camera and give you an idea a little bit. Let me just adjust this a little bit. Now I put on 2 4x8 sheets so far. Now what I did was I painted the plywood, okay, and then I put a sawdust as the paint was drying over it, and then I took my leaf blower
and blew off the sawdust. So all that really remains is just a light dusting of sawdust. But what it does, I was just experimenting basically to give my interior roof kind of a texture that kind of disguised the fact that it was plywood, and it worked out pretty good. Now, you can see my cedar shingles are working as shims to bring all that plywood up to level and strengthening it. And so I'm going to continue with that fashion until we get the whole roof on, and then I'll come back to you. And before we lay down the felt, the first layer of roofing before the shingles, we are going to install, sitting right over here, is our stovepipe flue, insulated, fire protected, heat protected, triple baffle stovepipe. So we'll be coming back in a little bit later today. We're into April now, believe it or not. I'm not really worried about the dates anymore. So it's going to be done when it's done. And we'll come back and talk to you, like I say, when we're ready to put that stovepipe in. Okay. Did this too the other day. Put up this archway there over the road, and I'm going to hang from a couple chains a little sign, an exit sign to the preserve. It says y'all come back now, or thanks for visiting, or something like that. Okay, we're putting on the last of the plywood for the roof. Hopefully before it gets dark out here, we can get the roofing felt on. So I'm going to go ahead and screw this last piece on. Come back and show you when we got almost all the felt on.
Alright, when you're putting your stovepipe in, you simply plunge cut from underneath with your chainsaw, pop a hole right through the plywood and the roofing, and then take your jigsaw from up top and cut your hole, set it right in there. Susan, you turn it. Putting on the shingles. Getting almost to the end of putting the shingles on the roof. I'm afraid I might run out here. These shingles I sort of scavenged from a friend's barn, but we're going to put the last of them up here, and we'll come back with you when we're ready to put a couple windows in, and we'll see you then. Our next step is to wash the entire cabin inside and out with a solution of bleach water, 1 part bleach, 2 parts water, and this will help to bring out that original pine color that we want to maintain. If we didn't do this and we didn't treat the wood at all over the next 5 to 10 years, it would turn completely gray, like a driftwood color. So I'm just going to wash the cabin now with a bleach water solution, and then once that's dried, we'll continue with some more information on chinking, and then we'll probably treat the cabin too to maintain the color. Come to our final stage here, which is the chinking of the cabin, and basically that's just to fill in the gaps between the logs with the material. What I'm going to be using is a mortar mix with a special dye mixed in, which gives it more of a kind of a buff brown cinnamon color. You can just use straight mortar too, the gray. In the olden days, they used to mix clay with horsehair and pack it in, but I found that a homemade bag, a grout bag, or a pastry, basically a big large pastry bag rather, works fine. And all you do is you put your mortar inside your bag, your one end open, it's basically a big funnel, you got a narrow end, and you just squeeze it in, like so. And then you simply take a wet paintbrush or a sponge brush I've been using, and you simply flatten it out. A wet sponge brush works real good. So, that's the last stage of preparing and building a log cabin. So, I'm going to take a wide-angle view of the completed project, and we'll be right back with you. Well, I never thought this day would come. Here we are at the end of the project. Our log cabin is completed. A lot of labor, but a lot of satisfaction in seeing a project like this come to be. I think right now I'm going to go start a fire, grab some kindling and start a fire in the Franklin stove inside. And it's been a satisfying project, and until we meet again on further projects, keep thinking good thoughts, and we will see you then.
it.